Hello everyone, this is Alien Reddit Story, where I tell alien stories off of Reddit. Story number 1. It was the summer of '06, and my family and I were on the freeway, heading back to the Central Valley after visiting family in LA over the long weekend. At around 3 a.m. in the afternoon, there were 5 of us, Dad, driving, Mom in the front, and me and my brother and sister in the back of the car. I'm on the far right of the back seat and was just watching the last of the city scenery fade away when I noticed something resembling the spaceship from E.T. in the distance. When I first saw it, it was a generic looking, so I assumed it was some sort of building, like the Seattle Space Needle, and the various buildings and trees we were passing were obstructing my view of whatever structure was supporting it. But as we kept on driving, I noticed that this thing was actually going along the freeway at the same speed we were. It was maybe 200 to 300 feet away, and this thing was pretty big. Once I realized it was floating, I freaked out. I was like, look, what the F is that? And we were all like, whoa. Although I wish I could say something exciting happened, or after about 10 minutes of floating alongside us, it just vanished into thin air. I wish I had a camera phone on me at that time, as there was ample time to take a picture, but alas, all I had was a Motorola flip phone, and a digital potato was all I could recall out of batteries. But I'm satisfied with just knowing my family was there to see it too. Story number 2. I was in my mid-teens, 15 I think. Anyway, I was still awake in the middle of the night around 3 a.m., brooding on my bed and listening to my CD, Walkman. The good old days, the good olden days. And I had this inexplicable urge to look through the blinds and out of my window. So I paused the music and did exactly that. As I gazed out, I saw this large, very dark object, shaped sort of like a fat cigar or a squished oval, glide silently across the sky nearby. It was very, very low and completely quiet. No noise at all. Suddenly, the movement was odd, too. Something about the movement was odd, too. Extremely fast and smooth. It was a dark, cloudy winter night, and the thing was so dark, it was darker than the sky, making it visible? I think it meant invisible. No way it could have been any sort of known human craft. I mentioned it to my mother the next day, and she suggested a stealth bomber. But a stealth bomber flying at low altitude above suburban streets in Australia? Come on. It was utterly weird, and still vividly remember the hair standing on the back of my neck feeling I had. The silentness and the darkness of whatever it was. I cannot logically explain or even guess what it could have been. Story number 3. My cousin came to visit me, and we hadn't spoke much since our grandmother passed 5 years prior. We went for a walk around town and bought a few spliffs to pass the time with. It was a great time. The family that smokes together stays together. We caught up on each other's life and got pretty well stoned while doing it. We got down by the canal and sat down on the dock to rest for a bit, which is when it got weird. I noticed that first, up in the sky there was a large blinking light, which I at first assumed was a plane coming in for a landing at the small county airport about 8 miles north of us, and thus paid a little attention. We spoke for about 10 more minutes before I looked back up. It was still there and blinking even more so. I decided it must be a satellite or a planet. My cousin looks up and says, "Wouldn't that be funny if it was an alien spaceship?" I chuckled with him, and I suggested we had to head back to my apartment where my roommates were waiting for us to get back and eat together. It followed us all the way back to the apartment, coming in low, maybe about only a half a mile above us, and it was moving fast. We were back the rest of the way to the apartment, not wanting to stop and investigate this large orb of light that was following us. Better to get home where we're safe. When we got back to the apartment, my roommates were out for a cigarette, and one of them made note of the light that was chasing us, asking what it was. I told them I don't know, and we sat on the porch watching it bounce around in the sky, while my other roommate completely denied even being able to see it. No abductions occurred that evening, but it was definitely jarring, and I honestly believe to this day that it was an alien ship or a geek with a quadcopter effing with a couple stoners. Next story. To this day, my friends and I believe we had a brief encounter. A few years ago, my best friend call him Adam, his girlfriend, we'll call her Aubrey, and myself were having a night out. We'd gone to a friend's house, partied, and stayed there most of the night. I had eaten 3 grams of psilocybin mushrooms. Aubrey had eaten around 1 gram, and Adam passed on them. He stuck to the little flask of whiskey he'd brought. Hours pass, the party flares up, dies down, and flares up again. So we decided to go. I wasn't feeling much from the whole 3 grams. The environment really neutralized the effects for myself. This is a rare occurrence, especially after that amount. Aubrey wasn't feeling much either, so she elected to drive. We're almost home, just on the other side of the town adjacent to ours. Aubrey's was starting to feel a little off, as it was I. We round a corner, doing roughly 35 miles an hour. I'm staring out the window, not saying much. Adam's staring in the same direction, not saying much. And Aubrey is doing her damnedest to stay focused on the road and not join us in staring out the window. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this progressive rock band, Explosions in the Sky. However, their exceptional song, First Breath After Coma, is playing at a pretty high volume as we all sit in silence just enjoying the ride. The music reaches a huge crescendo beginning at 2 minutes 30 seconds, and right as it reaches, it peaks almost a minute later. All 3 of us feel this pull. Out of the right corner of my right eye, I'm sitting, driver's side, back seat. I see this blinding white light where it was in my vision, means it was in front and center in hers and in Adam's. Keep in mind, Adam was on absolutely no substances other than a small amount of alcohol. It feels like an eternity passes. Time literally seemed to stop. After the light flooded the corner of my vision, it crept across all of it, and all I saw was a blinding white light, unlike any shade of white I'd ever seen. All of a sudden, time resumes. We're in the car. It's moving, and we haven't crashed or swerved. We have to pull over a few blocks down and process what just happened. All 3 of us had felt and saw that exact same thing. We felt time stop. We felt ourselves stop and resume breathing, and we all saw the light. They saw where it came from, but they couldn't explain it well. They said it came from the left of the car, really high up, but that it didn't move like things moved. It was there all of a sudden, then gone just as quickly. That morning was easily one of the most intense of my life. All 3 of us cried a little afterwards. It was such an overwhelming feeling. The thing I neglected to mention, though, that the feeling wasn't negative. When I felt myself resume, I sighed the largest sigh you can imagine. All 3 of us took a deep, long breath before we said a single word. We all felt completely content, completely happy and satisfied. The feeling of satisfaction was the deepest I ever felt. While I have no proof we encountered an extraterrestrial life form, however, our experience fell in line with a lot of other people's, though. From what I've gathered, we had one of the few positive encounters, if it was in fact one. Final story. This happened to a neighborhood friend and I when we were around 8 years old in Florida. It was midday during the summer, so our neighborhood was pretty much a ghost town with everyone at work. My friend and I were playing Pokemon cards in the driveway. When it happened, our gazes were fixated toward the ground when our cards were laid out. In my peripheral vision, I sensed a blinding white flash of light that engulfed everything. My friend immediately looked at each other, speechless. We stood up and looked up at the spotless blue sky over our heads and saw an immensely radiant orb of light just fixated in one place. It was about 12,500 feet in the sky, just sitting there. My friend said, "I'm going to get my telescope. Keep your eyes on that thing and do not look away for 1 second." He was in the house for like 3 minutes before getting his telescope, and then I'm ADHD, so after like 2 minutes my mind just went completely blank and I looked away. He came out with the telescope and saw me looking at the trees. Then I thought, oh ish, I forgot to keep my eye on it. He said, "What the freak, man? I told you to watch it." Whatever it was gone. No trace of it being there. I've never brought it up to anyone else, and we have never discussed it anyway. I've never discussed it again. There you have it. Another one in the books. Now my question, you know what, the one story that got me really interested was that flashing light. Now the one there on the psilocybins. Now granted, psilocybins, sometimes they cause a hallucination, but the one driver that only had a little bit of flask of whiskey, he was there too, and he said he saw it. So the story bodes well. Now my question is like how, not the light so much, but the account that they came from above them, and it sprung on them, the light. And then it just completely bathed them and they froze. Time stopped. What really sticks out to me is how they felt content, satisfied, like they were, as if they had a great experience. Which sounds like the complete opposite of something that happened to you. If that happened to you, if you felt completely outside of yourself and time slowed down and your breathing stopped, and that's anxiety-inducing terror. All right, that's not contentment and yes, I had a nice warm bath just now. After I had a nice sauna and I had a nice little gym exercise. Yes, let me get some protein in me and I'm completely contented with life. No, you would be terrified. You would be horrified. You shouldn't be comfortable or content at all. And then you're just going to drive off like nothing happened? That story really sticks out to me, you know? I feel like I'm going to say that is, you know what? I'm going to go with it. That was an alien encounter. Yes, I said it. It's the first time I said that on this channel, all right? And what I'm going to say again on this channel for the umpteenth time is, what is alien to me is why you haven't subscribed already. Do it. It's free. Do it! It will liberate you. And I'll see you next time on Alien Reddit Stories.